See, before I start this video, I want to publicly apologise for the fact that I'm trying out a brand new bronzer today and I feel like it's went a wee bit muddy, especially around my cheeks and my forehead and stuff, so yeah, please ignore that. But anyway, hello friends, hi guys, how are yous? Welcome back to my channel. So for today's video, I'm actually going to be doing a review and a comparison tutorial. I had actually bought a brand new palette from SHEIN slash SheGlam. So SheGlam is SHEIN's makeup brand, and I was actually just on their website having a wee nosy, picking up the lashes that I wear. These wee ones here. If you actually seen one of my previous tutorials, you would actually see me like, well, any of my tutorials, they're the lashes that I use. Anywho, and I came across this palette, and this is the Afterglow palette, and I had to pick it up. Did I need it? No. But did I want it? Yes! And I had to pick it up because it is absolutely stunning. But once I got it to me, seen it in person, opened it up, and I thought, wow. Wow, well doesn't that just look like the NATASHA DENONA gold palette that I also have here? Look at this palette. I'll obviously give you a wee close-up. It has a mixture of mattes and shimmers. The shimmers look absolutely stunning, and this wee palette retails for £6.99. £6.99. Whereas we're going to be comparing it today to its dupe. No, that's the dupe. This is the dupe. This is the, yeah, okay. We're just going to continue. But anyway, so we're going to be comparing it to the NATASHA DENONA palette. So obviously the SheGlam palette is a dupe for the NATASHA DENONA palette, and this retails for £111. Also, as far as I'm aware, the NATASHA DENONA gold palette is actually discontinued. So I'm going to hold the two of these up together so you can definitely see. So yeah, definitely. We obviously have very similar tones in our neutrals, browns, transitions. We have a dark brown there. We also have the same type of tones and undertones of shimmers. We also have like these greeny, bluey shades here, a matte and a shimmer, as you can see. But basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the NATASHA DENONA palette on one side and then the SHEIN palette on the other side. We're going to go through the whole SHEIN palette to see if it is a definite dupe for the NATASHA DENONA palette. I know I can say that it is a dupe in terms of the colour story, but what we're wanting to see also today is it as good as the NATASHA DENONA palette? Are they as good a quality? Probably not. But do they blend as well? Are they pigmented? Do they blend together? Are they are the shimmers good? Are the mattes good? You know, we're going to do a wee bit of a comparison. We're going to do the exact same eye look on each eye, but using the different palettes. Just kind of see what the finished result looks like. Okay, so you can feel free to skip by this bit, but I'm going to do some very, very quick swatches on the palm of my hand. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do a row up here of the NATASHA DENONA shades swatched, and below I'm going to do some of the SHEIN palette swatches. Okay, so what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to swatch what I think is the exact same shades, if that makes sense. So you can definitely see that them shades are very, very similar. So as I say, the top shades are from the NATASHA DENONA palette and these are from the SHEIN palette. If I'm being honest, there really isn't much difference. The only difference I can feel so far is the quality of the shades. The NATASHA DENONA palette is definitely more creamier and the mattes just feel a wee bit more butterier. Whenever you're actually swatching them, but them swatches look pretty gosh damn good, if you ask me. Again, the top is NATASHA DENONA, the bottom is the, we're just going to call it the Afterglow palette, because by the sounds of it, the SHEGLAM Afterglow palette is a bit of a mouthful, but this is kind of awkward, so I'm gonna kind of show you upside down. So the upside down is obviously now from NATASHA DENONA, and then these are from SHEIN. But again, you can see the similarities, and again you can definitely see that they're just as pigmented and as creamy looking as each other. Although this shade, not too sure how it's coming off on camera, definitely isn't as intense as this shade from the Natasha Denona palette. You can kind of see it if I hold my hand this way, but this shade here, swatched from the SHEIN palette, is more creamier and pigmented than the Natasha Denona palette. Can you see that? So that's quite interesting. Just seeing these shades swatched on my hand, I think these are the colours I might actually use in today's tutorial. So again, the top is Natasha Denona, the SHEIN Afterglow. Look at my big white stupid hand. Please excuse my tan, by the way. The second shade in the Natasha Denona palette has swatched beautifully, whereas it hasn't on the SHEIN palette, so there's still a wee bit of payoff, but that's a wee bit pathetic in my opinion. The last shade, they're both as beautiful and as tensely pigmented as each other. The only difference is the shades and kind of like the undertone, whereas I feel like there's a wee bit of an antique bronzy green undertone in this shade, whereas with this one I feel like it's just like a nice true bronze. Oh, and do you know what? I don't actually think I showed you the packaging, or maybe I did, but I really like the packaging. It's just like a really nice soft matte finish with just like risen gold detailing, and then it's just the exact same on the inside, and it just has like a wee coat here saying autumn eyeshadow. Inspirational. Just to start this off, I'm going to be taking the Urban Decay eyeshadow primer potion in the shade Eden. After every brush use, I will be taking this wee tin thing I have here, and I just literally swirl my brushes in it. It won't get the brush like 100% completely clean, but it will get 99% of the pigment off the brush, so it just kind of makes it more fair on you, or for you watching, you know. My left side, which is your right side, yeah, your right side, my left. So this side is going to be Natasha Denona, and then this side is going to be SHEIN / SheGlam. Okay, good, we got that. Natasha Denona, SheGlam. SheGlam, Natasha Denona, Natasha Denona, SheGlam. For my Natasha Denona transition, I'm going to take this shade up here. And with this being my transition shade, kind of speaks for itself. I'm just going to pop this just within the crease. Wow, that's darker than I thought it was going to be. Next up for the SHEIN palette, I'm going to clean my brush. Don't really feel like I need to show you this every time, but I am going to be using this every single time I change my brush, okay? Just so that it doesn't contaminate the other palette. I think the dupe for the Natasha Denona one is this shade here, so I'm going to take this shade now as my transition. But just like the other side, just going to copy just what I've done, just applying this shade just within the crease, just going back into the shade just as I need it to build up the intensity, and I'm just packing on and blending as I go, and so far so good. There's definitely pigment there, it's blending. I'm obviously having to go back in to kind of build up this shade, but it's okay. The colour seems pretty good, I think, doesn't it? Or am I crazy? Doesn't look too bad. I'm going to go into one of the darker shades, and I think I'm just going to go balls deep, just going to go ham with this shade here. So I'm just going to be placing this shade just all over the lid and slightly bringing that up to the crease. I just switched from this Mitchell brush to this wee brush here to get the shadow right into the inner corner, but I'm also going to be using this wee brush on the Natasha Denona side to also blend the shadow out a wee bit. So I'm just going to go around the edges and just give that all wee pat just to diffuse that line so it's not so harsh, and just so that it's easier to then go in and blend that. And then I might take just like a wee clean brush . just to give that a wee blend. So now onto the SHEIN palette, of course. I'm going to be taking this shade here. Okay, we do seem to be struggling a tiny wee bit with a bit of patchiness. It's not coming off as much. I'm going to switch to a flat brush just to see if it will apply better with a flat brush. I think that brush was maybe a wee bit too fluffy, do you think? So, a nice wee flat brush. This is from Colourpop. Okay, here we go. It's applying a wee bit better now. So I'm going to bring that right into the inner corner, and then I'm just, again, just like the shade, or the side, sorry, just all over the lid up to the crease. Okay, so far so good. I'm actually pretty happy with that. It kind of took us a wee while, but I don't actually think that was the shadow's problem. I think that was actually just the brush, because as you can see now that it's completely opaque, it's got pigment, the pigment is there. All we need to do now is blend, but that wee hiccup that we had there, I think that was just the brush. I was using a different brush because obviously we're having no problems now. And in terms of the shade, I feel like it's identical again. What do you think? I think it looks pretty good actually. Then changing my brush to a Buff and Blend BB22 brush, and I'm going to give that all just a wee blend right around the corners and all the edges. Do you know what, guys, that seems to be blending alright, you know. See if I kind of like bring my mirror to this side whenever I'm doing this eye. Is this better? Have I eventually figured how to make my life easier? Is that better for you so you can see a wee bit better? So I'm going to clean off this brush. So I'm using very, very light pressure doing this, by the way. I think that looks alright actually. The only thing I'm not happy with is the inner corner. Like, I don't know why the inner corners look different, but it's not really that big of a deal, is it? As I had forgot to mention, actually, I wasn't getting any fallout with neither of the palettes, and I do think that the NATASHA DENONA palette so far is so much easier to actually blend with and work with. On the SHEIN She Glam side, it looks fine, it looks blended enough, I kind of think, but it just took a wee bit more work to get blended. Moving on, I'm actually going to jump into some of the shimmer shades now, so back into the NATASHA DENONA palette, and I'm going to take the shimmery blue. I hope I don't get much fallout with these shimmers, so I'm just going to start patting this on. Ooh, ooh. I'm really wanting to use the gold shimmers as well, by the way, so I'm not too sure where I'm going to be putting that, but we'll see. I'm going to try my finger now actually, so just like so. And also just use my finger to press that up into kind of like the crease area as well, so that it's not, so that it doesn't just stop at the crease, let's just say. And I find that using your finger does a good job of actually blending a shimmer shade up to your crease, so the way it just looks a wee bit more diffused. So this brush seemed to work pretty well with the shimmer shades, so I just cleaned that off, and I'm going to use it again. Now into the SHEIN palette, I'm going to take this shade here. This should be interesting. I'm going to take my finger to finish it off and kind of blend up to the crease. So I'm just going to go into a blending brush now, just to kind of try and blend both of them out. Just going to go back and forth, it's no big deal. What do you think? I'm actually really impressed. I got both results with both shadows there. And I think that they are very, very similar. They're definitely a dupe in terms of colour. And they have both performed really well. So I think I'm actually just going to go in with the gold. This one. What do we think? Put that somewhere. Yeah, will we? But see, before we do that, actually, I'm going to go off camera and do my lower lash line. Obviously using the two palettes. Obviously, I'm wanting to use one of these golds, so I'm going to go into this gold from the NATASHA Denona palette, and I'm going to be taking a couple of wee brushes here. Just wee flat shader brushes, 2 different sizes to start off with. So I'm going to start with this wee small one first of all. Okay, so I'm just going to leave it like that for now. I'm going to clean off this brush and go into the SHEIN palette. So I'm guessing the dupe for that shade is this one here, definitely. Holy shit! Oh my goodness. I really wasn't expecting that to be so intensely pigmented, like straight off the bat. Oh my god. Oh my god. So yeah, I think we're just winging it at this point, bringing it onto the lids, just in the inner corner. So now back into the NATASHA Denona palette. Clean off that brush, back into the gold shade. And I'm going to pack this on a wee bit heavier handed, like this side. Then clean off that wee brush, go into the shimmery blue. And then just repeat the exact same steps as what we were doing on this side, basically. Just using pattern motions just to blend those two shimmers together. A wee bit on that inner corner. Oh, do you know what? I really like this, you know? Not to tip my own horn. And then, oh yeah, I'm using the SHEIN palette, by the way. Yeah. And then just clean off those brushes. And then back into the NATASHA Denona palette. Okay my loves, so that comes to the end of this tutorial. So before I go, I'm just going to give you another wee close-up of the makeup look, and also just a quick wee rundown of both of the eyeshadow palettes. But I'm actually so happy with this makeup look. I think it is so nice. I'm genuinely really happy with it overall. But the palettes, guys, oh my god, I don't even know where to start. Obviously, you could obviously see for yourselves, it doesn't matter what I say, you obviously see for yourselves how this eyeshadow palette performed up against the NATASHA Denona palette, and it performed fine. As you've seen, I had no struggles and no problems. The only problem I did seem to have at the start was with the blue shade, and I do feel like I took on a fluffy brush. I needed a brush that was a wee bit more dense to be able to actually pack it onto my lid, because as you see, once I changed my brush, it worked fine. And it blended fine. I do feel like overall, before I applied the shimmer shades, that the NATASHA Denona side was a wee bit more pigmented and a wee bit more intense. But overall, the Afterglow palette up against the NATASHA Denona palette were definitely 100% able to keep up with the pigmentation of the NATASHA Denona palette, and they were also able to blend out as well. I had no problems whatsoever with blendability. They blend together, like the transition shade and also the blue blue shade, the blue shade on top of that, and then the shimmer applied, great. Everything blended well together. It's okay having shades that are able to blend, but whenever you have an eyeshadow palette, these shades need to be able to blend together. Whenever it comes to the shimmer shades, they need to be versatile. You need to be able to apply them just to a bare lid, an inner corner. You need to be able to apply them wet, dry, over a matte shadow or a liquid shadow or something. The shades need to be versatile, and I feel like this palette done really, really well up against the NATASHA DENONA palette, because I have used this quite a few times in the past and I've got a good bit of use out of it, and I've got a good play with the mattes and the shimmers, and honestly it really is actually a dupe. It really, really is, and it definitely is worth it. Now, one thing I will say as well, I'm going to talk briefly about the elephant in the room. Yes, this from SHEIN. I know a lot of people do not support SHEIN. I completely understand that. SHEIN is obviously a fast fashion brand, but at the end of the day, let people live their lives, you know what I mean? Is it worth it over the NATASHA DENONA palette? Yes. For the simple fact that, yes, because it's discontinued and you can't get it anymore. I would rather spend £6.99 on this palette rather than £111. Is this palette worth it over the NATASHA DENONA palette in terms of, you know, quality of the eyeshadow palettes, just the overall performance of the eyeshadows, the shades, the undertones, etc.? No. I'm not being biased at all in this tutorial, by the way. I'm kind of picking pros and cons between both palettes. This is a £100 palette, and whenever you're using the shades, you can tell. And this does feel it like a luxury palette. You can tell whenever your fingers are in the shades. You can tell whenever you're applying them to the lids, you're blending them, how they look. It definitely is worth it, but at the same time, this palette here was able to keep up with how it looked and how it performed. Just the overall feel of the shades, you know, there was no comparison there. The NATASHA DENONA palette definitely knocked that out of the park, but you can definitely tell by my eyes that this palette is 100% a dupe for the NATASHA DENONA gold palette, and it is definitely worth getting this palette over the NATASHA DENONA palette, because whenever you do look at my eyes, I'm sorry for the extreme close-up again guys, I really don't think you would know just by looking at my eyes that I have used two different palettes. One side is a palette that costs £111 and this side costs £6.99. So £7, let's just say. So overall, I definitely would recommend this wee palette. Go pick it up. Go try it out. It's £6.99. It's not going to break the bank, and I do feel like if you do have this palette and you love it, it's your die-hard go-to holy grail palette. Also, pick this up because you're going to go through this eventually, and it's discontinued. I would say there probably is other dupes out there for this palette, or you maybe have, you know, say this shade in another palette, or this shade in another palette, or this shade in another palette. All these shades in this palette you probably have in other palettes, but just as a whole, you may as well just get this palette for £6.99. But yeah, it was honestly so good, and I was so impressed, and the overall layout of the palette as well is so pretty. It's beautiful, really nicely presented, and I'm so happy with it, so happy. I will link this wee palette down below in the description box. But yeah, I hope you guys did enjoy this video. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram. That will be down below in the description box as well. I hope you're all staying safe and well. Please kindly look after yourselves and each other, and I shall see you in my next video.